Sweat Equity Podcast and Streaming Show. We're back.
We are.
You're back.
Yeah.
You went to Tahiti. You got a tan.
I mean, a month is a long time in Tahiti, man.
Yeah, I can't wait to tell me about all the lady boys. We're the number one comedy business podcast in the world.
What?
You like how I talked over that so you couldn't get in?
Yeah. Doesn't bother me none.
Hey, man, if you
Tahitian, baby.
if you like this show,
vibes.
minus Eric's hiatus, spread the word because we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel. We need those subs, as the kids call it.
Oh, yeah. That's what they're talking about?
Yeah, not sandwiches, man.
Oh.
Bribers. This episode of Sweat Equity is sponsored by Zupyak, the first search optimized AI writer. I use it. I'm not only promoting it, I'm a member as well.
Yeah.
It's the first AI
That's
writer.
bad joke.
Look, writing content blows, but you don't want it.
Try it, though.
You don't want it to read like a foreign exchange student. That's how a lot of chatgpt and the other ones work. This one's simple. You get in and out, baby. Go to Zupyak.com. That's ZUPYAK.com. Enter the promo code SWEAT and get the hookup. Holler if you hear me. That's Zupyak, ZUPYAK.com. And if you want some hookups from Squarespace, CallRail, or LinkedIn Premium, those links will be in the episode description.
No, okay, not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too shabby.
Good.
Let's get it going. Howdy, Toddy!
It's called Sweat Equity.
Listening to the Sweat Equity Podcast.
You good?
I guess so.
Okay. Wow, that was some mad girlfriend energy.
What?
I guess we're okay.
I'm insecure about the software, okay?
Well, this is recorded on Zoom, so worst case scenario, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
All these record our parts in case they get messed up.
No faith in me.
I don't know what's going on.
Probably wise. I don't know what's going on either.
Should we call you Alex?
Alexander.
Yeah,
we rebranded a few years ago.
Well, Alexander Concepcion.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell we're in it now? Why don't you tell everybody where to find you, what you're about? Just we found if we let the guests do their own intro, then I don't have to stumble through reading out loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So the main thing is I'm publishing my book, Survival First: The Rebel Entrepreneur's Guide to Risk, Riches, and Immortality, around late February, early March. And that can be found at survivalfirstbook.com. And my background is I'm originally from Miami, born to Cuban immigrants, and I moved to Austin, Texas 9 years ago, and I've started a real estate company called Taco Street Locating, which helps people find apartments all around Texas. So that's the gist of it.
And you had something?
What?
I thought you had something. Oh, I thought you were
Made a sound with my mouth.
I thought you were clearing
I
your
guess that's what talking is.
Taco Street Locating. That's an interesting name. How did that come about?
Well, I didn't want to be just another realtor because that I just wouldn't want to kill myself just in real estate because there's so many
The name
people. Yeah, there's so many people just doing the same thing the same way, and I was not going to do that. And I just thought it would be ridiculous to take like street tacos, invert the name to Taco Street, and turn that into the name of a real estate company. It was funny and absurd and ridiculous, so I went with it.
It's got sticking power, and you're sticking with the theme of keeping Austin weird. That's aligned with that.
I thought there was a real taco street in Austin. That's what I assumed.
If you've been to Austin, you would conclude that every street is Taco Street.
Right.
So it makes sense given the context.
Yeah.
I'm loyal to Torchy's, I think is
Here we go.
the one that I like the best out there. But I haven't been there in, 10 years. So
Really? You talk about it like you were just there last week.
Well, I almost moved there. I almost moved to Austin. couple times.
Don't I just give you a segue to talk about it more?
And I used to really love it. My friends that are there now are saying it's good for realtors, for like yourself.
Yeah.
But it's a city that is over capacity, I guess, and as you get closer to downtown, because it's all like centralized or something.
I wouldn't say that, because here they're building. So my niche is apartment complexes, and I help people find places to rent.
Yeah.
And they are building them so fast. It's insane how I've been in this business for like 6 years, and yeah, I've had a ton of people move here from all the places you'd expect. But yeah, they actually are building a ton of new inventory, which is good for pricing. It's good for me. It's good for the people getting reasonable rents, reasonably close to downtown. Yeah, some people are going to complain, but I think it's pretty well balanced
It's an interesting
right now.
study, I guess. It's a small city that is booming from being a blue city in a red state. In some instances, a lot of tech companies. Well, a lot of tech companies move there. A lot of the comedy kind of capital now, because there's 7 full-time clubs in a city that has 1.5 million,
something like that.
Yeah, so it's just an interesting kind of Sim City study. If you're cool like that and played Sim City,
Real city.
Yeah, I would even go as far to say that there's like a renaissance happening here.
Yeah,
just in terms of the people that are coming here and the energy they're bringing in terms of entrepreneurial energy, but at the same time wanting to not be your hyper growth venture backed startup bazillionaire. The people here are generally down to earth, super friendly, and they're coming for that. But so many people I work with, they're just coming here to do something new, become themselves, and bring a lot of energy to the table that is this city. And it's really exciting.
You have kind of a quiet energy, a very calculated, it seems almost, pressurized energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you can get those people that are like, hustle culture people.
Yeah.
And that's
usually not a fan of those.
That's what I was thinking of when I was like,
No.
who are the annoying entrepreneur? Oh, those guys.
Yeah, there's a
lot
lot
of
them.
The Gary V wannabes.
Right.
Oh my God. No.
Yeah.
That exists here in a small dose, but at least I'm biased based on the ecosystem of people that I have. Like, are people that have their own businesses, they don't want to be in the corporate world, but they also want to be happy, healthy people. And a business is just part of their lives rather than the whole thing.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely someone that gets like that energy by osmosis by being around those kind of people. But before we get into like the entrepreneurship aspect in your book, we have 2 questions we want to ask you. Did you listen to the podcast before coming on?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I'm wearing a flamingo shirt.
Okay, I was gonna say he's wearing a flamingo jacket.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
that's weird.
I didn't tell him about the email you said yesterday that you had it on, ready to go.
Yeah.
So that's just weird.
Oh, that is super weird.
Yeah.
This I would have promised the Tims.
Anybody who's watching this episode,
It's after midnight. You can eat donuts now.
that's a real inside joke.
I know, but it made you laugh.
We went to a gay New Year's Eve party, and Eric was wearing this coat that he's donning very, what would you say?
That's Pitbull energy.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Dale. All that.
Yeah.
And
I'm from Miami. I know. I recognize this energy very, very clearly.
Yeah. I did not. The necklace. Okay, so I'm wearing this. The part
you're wearing like a brooch.
I got to keep the shiny, super shiny necklace. This was given to me at the party, but the deal was I had to wear it on the podcast in order to keep it. So I'm keeping my promise.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they don't listen. I'm sure this is not the podcast for this.
Yeah.
But the other question we want to ask you is, what advice would you give your 13-year-old self?
To listen to yourself, to listen to myself. I was a very sensitive kid, but very non-expressive, and I would feel a lot, but not really know how to like understand what I'm feeling or connecting to what I'm feeling. And a lot of a lot of the traps I kind of fell into between then and now are consequences of me not listening to myself, and pretty much all the good things in my life right now are largely consequences of me listening to not just my head, but the deeper sense inside of me. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Can you give us like an example? Because a lot of people will say, I need to listen to myself, but it's kind of what we pride ourselves on this show is kind of drilling down on some of these bigger, broader kind of, I don't know, motivational, inspirational things, and kind of, if you have like
this one's tough to quantify sometimes.
No, but like a real life example, that you could go, oh, okay, I see what he means, because that could you could interpret that a lot of different ways. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So the most relevant way that's happened to me was post college. I graduated from I went to Penn State, got degrees in finance, economics.
Yeah.
No.
And
families are fans.
Yeah. And the plan was to go that corporate finance route, which never ever made sense to it made sense rationally. Like, oh, I want to make good money, I want to be successful. So get the successful sounding degree from the successful sounding school and go to the successful sounding company and do the templated path to get success. And the 2 years after college was critical for me because it was my brain telling me one thing and my soul going through a revolt and saying, dude, what are you doing? That is not what you got to do. And it took me 2 years to really understand and process that. And that's when I made the decision to, burn my diplomas as if I never went to college.
Did you burn them? Did you burn them for real?
Did you make an effigy?
I did burn them for real.
Nice. Badass.
An effigy, I think, would not be possible with just ash. But for me, the physical act didn't really mean much, but what it meant to me on the inside, I'm now free to go my own path. And what that meant to me at that time was to move to Austin, which was 9 years ago. And it was a similar thing when I eventually did get a job, and when I'm there at the job and I'm making good money and everything is fine, and I'm
you got a diploma, prove it.
And I'm financially stable for the first time. And then again, my senses are tingling and hey, something's off. This doesn't feel right. This is not the path. And then I quit that job and I just didn't have any backup plans. And eventually stumbling around from thing to thing to thing, I wound up in real estate and starting my own business, my own company, which was never the plan. I never planned on being an entrepreneur, but now that I'm about 6 years into this, I can't imagine doing anything else.
Did you think not having a backup plan gave you kind of more of that engine, more of the motor to kind of, you got to make something work? After you were real estate, I kind of fall in line with this. I didn't think I would, or maybe you're successful at it. You don't love it, but maybe you're just very good at it. We don't love marketing stuff. I don't wake up every day being yes, I can't wait to look at.
Right. Can't wait to spread the word.
To tracking code and stuff and implementation. But I have the satisfaction of I personally, I don't want to speak for Eric, but helping a business grow. That's exciting for me, but it took a while to kind of figure that out.
I'm not. Why would I not enjoy that?
No, I don't know. I just didn't want to speak for. I didn't want to speak for you. You just said ditto. No. But I'm saying in the comedy world, there's a lot of people that will believe if you have another job and you're not going 100% into it, you're not doing it correctly. Having no backup plan. I think that's kind of short-sighted and a little romantic, but that's more of the arts kind of profile. For you, do you think that helped having the back against your wall, your back against the wall? Do you think that helped kind of put good pressure on you? Yeah,
I spent years in just financial anxiety and dread and terror about
selling plasma.
What I was doing. I went broke I had to ask my dad for rent money for like 3 months back to back to back. And that's when I started doing this niche of apartment locating that I thought was only going to be a thing for like a few months until I found a real job. But what I always sensed throughout the entire time is I've got to do something that my senses connect to. And although the actual niche of apartment locating, it's like marginally interesting. The business side, it's really simple. It's not like a super fascinating business. It's really straightforward. But where I did find connection was the excitement of going from totally broke to not totally broke and doing all these things from the marketing and lead gen and building stacks of technology and developing processes and systems. I really liked that part. And that's where a lot of the energy came from, was kind of building this business kind of from scratch. And what I always think about is, where is the energy coming from? And part of the energy was the excitement of being not broke and running away from that kind of financially desperate state, and the energy of building something new and discovering new things about myself. Yeah, so that made it really exciting. And then doing it on my terms, controlling my time, controlling when I worked, where I worked from, and really, for the first time in my life, having that kind of sovereignty with financial stability was amazing.
Well, this is your first book, right?
Yeah.
Survival First, the Rebel Entrepreneur's Guide to Risk, Riches, and Immortality.
Oh,
this is why I can't read out loud. But I'm very interested in the risk part because it's one of my favorite board games. But not only that,
I've never played Risk.
It's so much fun.
I'll fuck you up in Risk, dude. I'll fuck your world
I
up.
got the fucking Hasbro Xbox package. I have it on ready to go.
Bro, you probably get Australian shit.
You take Australia?
I don't get your nerd jokes.
You don't know risk strategy then.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Good.
common strategies to get Australia.
Not a risk.
And you got, it's really South America.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to do it. It's got a chess kind of strategy to it. But I would say risk is something I feel like I heard talk recently about how we don't understand how to read a lot of just statistics in general. And I think that kind of is under the umbrella of risk. I don't think we, as a whole, I'm just speaking Americans really, assess risk properly in a lot of ways. On the business side, I think it becomes a thing where people don't take 10 minutes a lot of the time to think about the risk of what they're doing. And you can get so busy in the entrepreneurial kind of mode that you might not ever kind of do some basic analysis, even if it's just sitting down, right? And putting a cost benefit together.
Right.
What
if they just want to listen to themselves, trust their gut?
What are your
from somebody?
What are your thoughts on risk as a whole in business, being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So the reason the book is called Survival First is the fact that most of us entrepreneurs don't make it. Most creators don't make it. Just most of us don't make it. And most people just never talk about why. And I wanted to understand what's the difference between a business that survives and a business that doesn't. And then I got to the entrepreneur. And what I realized is that ultimately survival is a choice. And it sounds like a weird way of framing it, but no one is forcing you guys to do your business. No one is forcing you to do the podcast. It's your choice to continue to do the thing. And because you're choosing to do so, you are surviving. And risk is what makes you want to not make that choice anymore. And there's the two sides of risk. There's like the rational, the financial, the strategic, the above the surface parts. But to me, risk is primarily emotional, because hypothetically, if you're doing your business and you're making enough money to justify it rationally, but you hate doing it, you just wake up miserable every day and you hate your business, then you're probably not going to want to do it anymore. And therefore, what would make you hate your business? What would make you spend way too much time on it? What would make you feel all these negative emotions? What would bring you to the point where you're like, this isn't worth it anymore? So it's looking at both the rational and the financial, but in the frame of this book, it's primarily emotional. And it's where does the energy come from? Because if the energy to continue running the business isn't there anymore, then you're not going to do it anymore.
You talk in a solo entrepreneur, in the startup, like either breaking away from the corporate thing like you were talking about, or that going on your own is a lot of questioning thyself a lot.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're getting to?
Yeah, that's part of it. Like for me in my business, the reason I keep doing it is the money is pretty good and it opens up a lot of opportunities for my lifestyle because it gives me a lot of free time. But if my business didn't make enough money, if I just hated my business, then I would probably shut down the business and get a job. And it's all about what makes me want to choose to continue being an entrepreneur.
It's funny, people see the getting a full-time job that you get paid every month or every 2 weeks or whatever. You got your benefits package. They see that as no risk, right? Once they get it.
Right.
And
ask them the same thing on their deathbed.
Well, yeah. And then so in their head, it becomes like, should I do this venture or should I go for the less risky thing? But the problem with that is they don't think about what can happen with that day job, because you can get chicken for externalities that have nothing to do with your performance, right? And so they never go like one layer deeper to go like, well, is getting a full-time job at a company, is that risky in itself? Because it is, but you never assess it that way.
Yeah, well, just from an objective standpoint, having one source of income that's 100% of your income is just not safe. Maybe it's stable for a while, but you go from 100% of your income to zero, just flip of a switch and you're done. And someone else has control over that switch that is your income. So depends on the profession you're in, but
by and large, it's out of your hands. And if they find out you have a second gig that's kind of related to what you do there,
right?
You might,
you don't think 24/7 about our company,
right? They don't like that so much. I've had instances where I was interviewing, they're like, so you do this stand-up comedy thing at night? I'm like, yeah, it's at night. It has nothing to do with this day job. And they're like,
you gotta stop.
Yeah, we don't think that's good. I'm like, you can't.
We've seen
you got me for 40. Yeah, well, that's another story. But that now we're starting to sound like Thanksgiving with my family. But like,
get a real job, by the way.
But they're like, oh, God, now you sound like my ex-wife. I'm like,
who else can I do? What other impressions do I do?
Who other close to me has hated on what I've been doing? But it's one of those things.
I love everything you do.
Thanks. But it's one of those things where, now I lost my train of thought.
You got a compliment.
Yeah, I know.
So part of what I was, it's not just
a necklace joke earlier on you.
So it's not just like the single source of income that someone else controls that the problem. It's the deeper psychic crisis of being on the wrong path for a really long time. So the way I ultimately frame it in the book is as a relationship, and we are in relationships with our businesses in the same way other people are relationships with other people, and we're also relationships with our jobs. And in that frame, if you're in a relationship that you're like, this kind of sucks, and you just keep doing that relationship for 5-10 years in the future, and the deeper you get, the harder it is to untangle. And then you wind up like deep into the future, and you're like, what have I done with my life? That's the real risk for me. That's what I was sensing when I was 22, 23 was, I know if I go down this path, I'm going to wake up one day realizing, what have I done? And I'm like, nope, I'm not taking that risk. I'm going to take a different risk. So a lot of the things I've done that may seem on paper like brave are me just being more terrified of the alternative. So you asked about like the putting my back against the wall. Like, yeah, I did that, but it was also knowing that there's someone else's path that I could walk that would maybe give me some financial security, but would lead me to this deep existential dread, which I was just not going to do. Or I was going to go down my own path, and whatever was going to happen was going to be mine, and I was going to make it. And that was the only thing that made sense and still makes sense to me now.
For those listening that want to go do their own thing, one thing a lot of people get nervous about is competition going into doing their own business. Why isn't competition real?
So one of the chapters in the book is competitive risk. And I argue that competition is not real because we are never playing the same game against someone else. Like competition is like chess or football.
Or
We're
risk.
playing,
Or the game of risk.
You're right. The game of risk. You're playing the same game with the same set of rules directly against someone else. And that is never, ever, ever the case in business. What we're doing instead is we're all playing different games next to each other. And what happens, like in the context of this podcast right now, whoever's listening is making the choice to listen to this instead of listening to something else.
And we thank you so much for listening while you're jogging.
Yeah. So the risk to you guys isn't that you're beaten by a different podcast. It's that the listener chooses to do anything else. So the way I frame it in that chapter, it's not competitive risk, it's replacement risk. And the problem with competition as a frame is that it puts your focus on other businesses like you. So you wind up becoming just like everyone else. Basically a commodity. That's where you have everyone who's like real estate agents. They're all doing the same thing just like each other. They look the same way, they act the same way, they market the same way. They're doing all the same things. And when you realize that's almost all businesses operate. It's everyone is pretty much copycatting everyone else. And they're using the frame of competition, which leads to copycatting. But with the replacement frame, it's how do you become irreplaceable? And that's part of the reason I have a taco-themed real estate company, because it stands out. It does not fit in. And it's also a more optimistic frame with which to think about business. Because a lot of small people starting off, they're thinking, how can I compete against Amazon or Google or blah, 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 insert big company? You can't, and if you try, you're going to lose. Because you can't do what they do, but the inverse is also true. They can't do what you do. Because you're a small business, you're an individual, you can infuse your business with personality. You can make a more human experience in ways that big businesses can't. And as a small entrepreneur, I think that's radically optimistic, but also just connected to reality.
Yeah, I think it's point of view. I think I think you can look at it in defeatist way, right? Mm-hmm. And go, well, I want to sell books online, but I can't compete with Amazon. And
well, that's a bad one.
I'm giving an example, but you never look at it from the inverse, which is
right.
Total.
I'm your local bookstore. Come on down, have a cup of coffee with me or some shit.
And the total area market you might have is right. The Tam, Tom, and Som. The whole like kind of what is the total market that is out there.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's almost infinite.
It depends. Yeah. I mean, but I think it's perspective of just about how you look at it. Like you can hate on yourself and the idea and what you're doing. And that probably is a deeper subconscious thing that you don't believe in yourself to do it. Or you can take that information as, and still be optimistic on like, there's still a market for me to have a slice in it.
Yeah. The thing like coffee shops, most people, like your options are you can go to Starbucks, like the big mega chain, or you can go to like a cool little quirky coffee shop down the road ran by someone who lives in the neighborhood and you know them, you can build a relationship with them and they really care about their stuff. Like they're playing different games.
Yeah. So
that little coffee shop that has a store of one, they're going to win that game because you, the consumer, you're like, I like that experience more. It's it's more human. It's more, that's what people want.
The coffee doesn't.
It's
taste
they want more.
warm.
They want to feel
Right.
Feel good. They want an emotional reaction.
Yeah,
Well-
and that's the giant exodus of the corporate world that we're seeing. It's that people want to get away from this basically dehumanized way of making money and take sovereignty over the way they make money, which is sovereignty over your life. And to me, the optimistic thing, it's like, yeah, if you put your human energy into the business, it's going to stand out because there's no one like you. And that's the fun part. Like, I've done that with my business. Like, my business has a ton of my personality infused in it, and bigger businesses can't do that.
Right. No, totally agree.
Yeah.
Well,
I just want to point out real quick, besides the both of us wearing flamingos, what did I tell you I was going to make you for dinner?
tacos.
Nice.
So weird.
Man, we really sound
I'm
like a
just
couple.
saying it's weird. I'm not making
Well, when's the book come out? Do you know? You have a drop date?
Oh man, planning late February, early March. We've already uploaded the audiobook, which takes about 5 weeks. But yeah, it's that's the window.
All right. Well, let us know. We'll throw it out there in future episodes. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time and you guys synchronizing your flamingos without
All right.
knowing it.
Yeah, thanks for having me
Communicate
on.
with you telepathically, sir.
Mhm.
All right, buddy. See ya.
See ya.